Good morning. It is Judgment Call, 11 a.m. Monday, our usual time slot. I'm here with the wonderful Cheshire. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm in a nice mood this morning for some reason. I wonder why. I don't know. Maybe a whole bunch of things going on. Was it a conflation of events that are happening that are just making me giddy today?
Conflagration.
Conflagration. I think that's set on fire, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's set on fire. That would be actually bad.
Would I be wrong?
No. I don't think. I think that metaphorically you'd be actually spot on. But anyways, we got kind of an interesting episode this morning, I think, because we're going to be doing something similar to what we do in Caffeine Corner, but we're going to have you guys kind of call in and join us if you wish. Matter of fact, why don't you tell people what it's about when you finish masticating? She likes to masticate on air. I don't know. Whatever. I don't judge. Are you a masticator?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a master.
She's a big time masticator.
Okay. Master masticator.
Make sure you guys can hear us. Make sure everything's working well. You guys can see us. And yeah. So what's this episode going to be about?
So we're going to be talking about the ACA. Yay! Now, we've talked about the ACA and sort of been, maybe whistleblowers about the ACA for some time, like at least a year and a half, I want to say. I'm going to
go on for at least 2-3 years, maybe. I'm like, they got some issues.
Yeah, and they've kind of just been escalating and compounding on each other, right? And so it seems like it's they're starting to have a little bit of problems of the imploding variety.
Yeah, they're very self-destructive in that regard because they want to have some kind of commonality of what their positions are, but then again they don't really have much of a position other than, hey, you guys call in and we tell you why we don't believe you, and that's really not much of a cohesion thing. But they have a lot of shows on the ACA.
No, there's an inherent problem with ACA, like atheism, when it comes to it being like a community. It's because the only thing atheism really is just you don't believe God exists. And so that doesn't really inform any kind of dogma or any kind of political stance on its own, right? So you have to spend a whole bunch of time, if you want to have a community, trying to build up things that people have in common outside of just this one thing, right? And in trying to do that, it's very easy to make some critical errors, which we were seeing the result of at this point.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that they hold, right? I mean, that's their commonality. Of course, I disagree, and I think that's kind of a weird way to have a commonality. It's like saying, hey, none of us are ducks, let's form a group.
Yeah.
It's what's the difference? You don't form a group on what you're not. You form a group of what you believe, right? Political organizations are positions that have a certain amount of interest in changing political structure because of their political beliefs where they want to incorporate change. They don't really go about that way, though. I mean, they are a political organization. American Atheists are a political organization. And of course, they have to have political beliefs. And those political beliefs are based upon their theological and philosophical and ontological beliefs that they claim that they don't have, which I think is self-refuting. So.
It's definitely counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive, and it's counter to their goal, right? Now, if you want to have people, if you want to try and bring people together, I understand the idea. I understand the concept, particularly with their location. The ACA is in Texas, and Texas has a very strong religious hand in politics. And so I definitely can sympathize with wanting to have sort of, teach the controversy sort of idea where you've got a more balanced political system by introducing the removal of the religious pressure, I guess.
Yeah, and I think
trying to fight against it.
Yeah, and I think that's applicable to a lot of different areas, especially in the Deep South, Mississippi,
That's why
Alabama,
you would want to
Georgia.
form a political group.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, and I get that. But at least be honest about it, right? When you have a political group and you start off with kind of a shaky foundations, you're going to have problems. You're going to have fracturing. You're going to have splintering. You're going to have these types of things that keep popping up, like the one we're going to be talking about, which in this particular case has to do with a show called Talk Heathen, which I used to watch when Eric, who I consider a friend, I used to watch the show. I think they they had some interesting stuff. I mean, they weren't as bad as some of the other ones, let's put it that way. But as people know, they were, how should I say it? I don't want to say forcefully removed, but highly motivated to leave the ACA, I guess. I'm trying to be tactful here.
There's been there's almost a point of a mass exodus with the number of people that have left the ACA umbrella recently.
Well, and going back several years, I mean, even
oh, for sure,
Jen Peoples and Tracy Harris,
Tracy.
you know, yeah, I mean, there's been fractioning for a very long time. Matter of fact, most people would even recognize the board of directors they have now, and most of them are so far left leaning to the point where it's not a matter of even dealing with God's existence or not. It's an advocacy for, you know, feminism and you know, just far left type positions. Not saying feminism's far left, but they are radicalized.
The way they're handling it is, yeah. It's the idea of they're sort of a product of their environment, but they've reached beyond that environment. Like, it makes sense to have a more extreme leftist political grouping in a far right leaning area to counteract whatever's going on with that far right leaning.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, again, look, I'm against teaching creation in school, and any organization that's advocating for the removal of creationism in school, I'm all for. I don't care what their religious or ideological perspectives are. It makes no difference to me. They could be an old earth creationist, they could be an atheist, they could be a Satanist. I don't care. The point is that we both believe that creationism should not be taught in school. So we have something in common there. So yeah, we were looking at a thread the other day. This is from a person. Their name is ExCultBaby. I don't know ExCultBaby very well. I don't think I've ever talked to them. I'm not familiar with their history. However, from when I've seen, they're very civil to people for the most part. But
a lot of this thread looks awfully familiar.
Yeah, there's a lot of commonality there. We've seen it with Notes with Autumn. It just happened recently. She got removed from the ACA because she dared ask about, you know, the transparency of a 501c3. They didn't look very favorably on that, even though it should be transparent, even though they're not required to be. Yeah. Watch
her video as well as watch Bearded Heretic talking about her video. Both are very good.
Yeah, we did when was our video on that we did? It wasn't that long ago.
Huh?
I did a video, and I have Bearded Heretic's video in the video description. So.
Oh, I don't think I was there for that.
Who are you again?
Was it while I was on vacation?
I don't know, man.
By vacation, I mean being interviewed by the FBI.
Look, all your co-hosts are alike. I mean, it's just. Yeah.
It's because of my haircut, isn't it?
I'm
don't
still
recognize me anymore.
So this was a kind of an interesting thread because, again, we saw a lot of commonalities. I haven't reached out to ExCultBaby. I probably understand they probably not favorable of me, only because of the history of the ACA and me, and how much that the ACA has tried to slander me, especially with Matt Dillahunty, who they're not getting along with Matt right now. So I thought we'd kind of go through it. Yeah, exactly.
We saw a little bit of that with Autumn, actually, when she was talking to Scott Clifton.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Autumn actually said, you know, I was told, you know, probably shouldn't engage with you because it's useless. And I was like, but we've had conversations in the past and they were very civil. What are you talking about? But I was like,
I actually went back and looked on one of my Dumbfeck Fridays. I took a look and followed the thread to see where this conversation was, where it went. And then also when she brought up the previous conversation, I went back and found the previous conversation. And I was like, there
was nothing even remotely hostile with that conversation.
It was just very bizarre. And it
struck me as well, because I was like, you have a conversation with somebody, it's fine. There's nothing, I can get Twitter Steve on Twitter if I need to. This wasn't at all like that. This is what it was bizarre about me. I'm like, wait a minute, I've been very congenial with you. I don't understand. Well, and she's like, well, it was somebody that I trust, and I'm like, well, I've trusted people that have given me bad advice when it comes to things as well, especially when they go by misinformation. But so let's dive into the tweet here. I'm going to see if I can show this here. Mm-hmm. See if that cat, is that showing on screen? No, it's not. Okay, let me see here. That's the right tweet. Show. Why is it not showing the tweet? I know what I'll do. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, click that. There we go. That should do it. All right. That, click a couple different things around, and there we go. Now they can outside see it.
All right. I'll take your word for it because I have to wait for the to catch up to know. Nothing's you're gonna have a hard time beating yesterday's. Why am I not seeing that person's messages? Turn it to live chat.
That was hilarious.
I have it on live chat. It's not on top chat.
That,
I said
that
I
was
don't
pretty
believe
funny.
you.
That was funny. I gotta admit, that was. I like
That
a
was
genuine
good.
laugh like that, where I was like, "Holy shit!" Yeah, okay, my bad.
A rare sighting of the green cup.
Yes.
Oh, lovely. Yes, we can see it. Fantastic. Okay. So the ACA show producers specifically told me that they didn't want me to make an announcement about this, but I'm free now, so I'll say whatever the hell I wanna. Fair. I've been removed as a regular host of Talk Heathen. I'm not surprised since they've taken me off of the hosting schedule multiple times in the past couple of months. I saw this coming. I rocked the boat after all. Hey, remember that time when Kyle stopped scheduling you?
Yeah, I mean, this again, this story sounds awfully familiar to me. I don't know why. It's like a deja vu here.
Paradolia.
I was demoted on my own show. Yeah. So yeah.
There's so much I have been holding back saying in the very little amount of time I've been at an ACA host because I didn't want to make the ACA look bad. I represented them. So I actually have a question here. Was ExCultBaby a paid host or was ExCultBaby a volunteer? Because the ACA does not seem to be very clear about who they're paying for what job and who is volunteering for what job.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to some transparency issues that Autumn was talking about. Now,
yeah,
again, they're not under any legal obligation to, which is strange. You would think that under a 501c3 you would, but from what I understand, there is no legal obligations. But I mean, if you're donating money to a 501c3 and they're not telling you where it's going, there might be some issues with that.
Yeah. And of course, ExCultBaby is under no obligation to answer. Right. I'm just curious. Like that makes me wonder.
Yeah.
The past few months have been mentally and emotionally exhausting. I hear that. And I'm honestly glad to be free of it. I only stayed with them at all because the position of Talk Heathen host was graciously passed to me by my good friends and former hosts Eric and V.
Yeah, and I can tell you that they turned it over to ExCultBaby with very good intent. They thought it was in good hands. Yeah.
Not anymore. The show has been very meaningful to me. I loved watching the ACA shows. They were instrumental in my own deconversion, and I viewed being a host as a much greater opportunity than I'd yet had to enact positive change and engage in meaningful and productive conversations. Okay, so here's one of your major problems. You were expecting to have meaningful and productive conversations with the ACA.
Yeah, and that's obviously a problem because the ACA, from my experience, isn't interested in meaningful conversations. They're interested in making the theists look silly and not engaging in the actual topics. Because I mean, they straw man theists all the time. And again, I'm not saying that shut
down conversation.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not some theists that are just so way out there. You know, you got to resort to a little mockery every so often or something, or along that lines, or hang up on people. Oh, yeah. But this was their entire shtick. I mean, it has not grown or changed in 10 years in that regard. When people do call up with an actual argument,
into that, there used to be people who had those conversations. There used to be people who would be like, "Well, hold on, let me see if I can understand what you're saying, so we can suss out why you say this and see if your logic follows." That used to be like the main theme of atheist experience. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's gone to the wayside years ago for Matt's ego.
Oh, yeah. That's what it's all turned into.
And the gimmick of hanging up on people.
Well, yeah, because people used to enjoy that, but then it became the whole show. I mean, there's actually a show that they do called The Hang Up. I mean, it's got to be a parody.
It's a gimmick.
Yeah, it's a gimmick.
I mean, I think that's, you know what? I don't even have a problem with having a gimmick show.
No,
especially if you want.
Either.
But it makes way more sense to have one gimmick show and the other show being like, okay, we're going to have these conversations. Not, hey, all of my other shows are a gimmick. Let's just make a show about a gimmick. And it just seems like this is not. You're not providing what you say that you're trying to provide.
Yeah, and worse, I mean, ExCultBaby going in with the intention, the mindset that these people want to have actual dialogues. Well, if that was the case, then why is it when I hear somebody call up with an actual argument, they get shut down immediately, every single time? And I'm not saying that the theist arguments are good. I'm not saying the philosophical arguments are good. Some of them are better than others, but it doesn't matter. They don't address the argument, or they completely misunderstand the argument. And we see that even more frequently. Look what happened with Arn Ra and those 3 Muslims. He had no idea in the world what the hell they were talking about. And anybody who did know what they were talking about, every single one of them has agreed with me. I have not found one person that knows philosophy yet that has not said Arn got destroyed on that because he didn't know what they were talking about, because what they were talking about was legit. It was actual philosophy. Anybody who's read about those particular topics would know how to interpret what they're saying. It wasn't manipulative. It wasn't, to lead them to a false conclusion. It was standard stuff. And he didn't understand it. So when people call up to the atheist experience, it's not about having those conversations. But on this channel, we try to have those kind of conversations with actual philosophers, right?
So Godless Scummer makes a good point. I think The Hang Up is a show on the line, not an ACA show. Is the line not part of the ACA?
Yeah, he's right.
This is what we mean by transparency. It's very, very hard to tell where and who is related to which thing, because the line was a YouTube channel that was made by Jimmy Snow that hosts a lot of ACA people to do shows.
There's overlap there, clearly. Yeah.
That is I'm curious. I actually don't know, and I'd be curious to know if the line is getting money or paying into the ACA one way or the other, because that could go either way or both for all we know. There's no transparency.
Idea. Yeah, there'd be no
we
way
have no idea.
Dave says
one of the things that Jimmy complained about was that he needed money because he has to pay people
his
for
employees.
his employees. Is Matt Dillahunty one of his employees on the line? We don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. By the way, Cheshire is not an employee. She gets paid. That doesn't mean she's an employee. It just means we have a business arrangement. If anything, I work for her most of the time. David says, mocking and belittling the theist brings in the quote cool atheist, and that brings in the super chats, donations, and Patreons, plus it's low effort compared to actual discourse. You're exactly right. People love the dumpster fire. Look, I'm not going to make the high ground on this, or take the high ground on Non Sequitur show, which we had a lot of dumpster fires, but I think we promoted those dumpster fires very well. We didn't make those dumpster fires to be anything but what they were, and we made them entertaining. That's perfectly fine. That's what the show was about with those particular episodes, right? There was no bait and switch there.
There's nothing wrong with having a dumpster fire sometimes. I don't even mind. Like, it makes sense to me that Matt would have a show called The Hang Up. That makes sense to me.
That doesn't bother me. At all.
I totally understand that.
I think it's actually a good title. I think it's a good name.
That's brilliant. And that's great. And if you want people paying into that, but you have to remember, if any of these shows that aren't that one are supposed to be for promoting positive atheism, and they're supposed to be part of a nonprofit, why are you chasing super chats?
Yeah, and by the way, even that term positive atheism, ACA has their own vernacular for. They have changed what that understanding is. To them, positive atheism is to
be convenient for them.
Yeah, just be friendly with atheism, make it in a better light. Well, that's fine. Their usage of that. I mean, they're allowed to do that. But it's very confusing when there's already a term called positive atheism in philosophy, and people get confused when they call and they're like, well, we're not talking about that. I'm like, then why'd you call it that? Couldn't you call it something else? I just think it's confusing, because they actually promote negative atheism. That's the funniest part. Philosophically speaking, they promote negative atheism.
They promote negative atheism, and they're also promote like a very, if you want to say like a view on it, as of atheists as an individual, they promote a very arrogant, know-it-all, confidently incorrect atheist.
Yeah, well, that's what I call atheist TM, new atheist TM, right? Not my term that I created.
New atheist plus TM.
Yeah, that's been around for a while, but that's what I call the new atheist TM, because they're no different than any other fundamentalist group.
Oh yeah, they're absolutely like they come across as fundamentalist evangelical atheists,
Yeah.
and it's weird. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
Especially when they're like, but we don't take a position though.
Yeah, exactly. That's just weird.
Then what are you promoting?
Yeah, but we're promoting don't believe. Okay, well, I guess
don't believe in anything ever.
We have no beliefs.
All right. Can you imagine like just it's evangelical fundamentalist denialism.
It is denialism. That's most of the ACA. Their shows are all about denialism. I don't believe you. I deny. Well, even still, denying is actually meaning that you actually believe that it's false. But still, they're all over the place. But anyways, all right. So what? Where are we at here? I wasn't given a satisfaction.
I was trying to make the best of a bad situation and take what I could get out of it while waiting out the storm. I actually stopped talking about changing the name of Talk Heathen because I had been taken off the host schedule twice and felt I was being bullied into silence.
Now, was that because of the word heathen? Because that was a little bit of a kerfuffle in earlier. Because
I would guess so.
Yeah. See, I don't even know what side went on what on that. To me, it's like I happen to like the name Talk Heathen. I don't see an issue with it. And we're all heathens to some group. So I don't. I mean, I understand the pagans might get a little perturbed about it, but I don't understand the argument there.
I imagine you would have like a hard time. It's sort of hard to have a name or have a conversation about religion without offending somebody.
95% of the time, right? Yeah.
Right. Unless you make the name like kind of a non sequitur or make the name sort of a misnomer. Like we're called Judgment Call and people could take offense to the term judgment.
Yeah, we're passing judgment. Okay.
I mean, we kind of are.
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind that. By the way, I know we're covering up the phone number. I don't mean to be. It's the only place we have to really put this where it kind of makes sense.
Right now.
So I'm looking at you through the camera.
But penis.
Oh God. Okay, David Silverman. y'all just fucking with me at this point. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
See what I do?
Absolutely. I'm only here to try and get Steve into more trouble.
She does a pretty goddamn good job sometimes too.
Didn't you know that Steve never had any drama until I showed up?
Fact. Fact. I'm gonna put
my favorite comment.
I'm gonna put the phone number and I'm gonna pin it so people can call in because I know I'm covering it.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna keep reading this in the meantime. I wasn't given a satisfactory reason as to why they were taking me off the schedule. They didn't give me a satisfying reason as to why they were taking me off the show either. I don't really care what their given reasons are at this point. I know what went down and why. It makes me think of Boole.
Yeah, you know.
Where it's just like, hey, you're supposed to be on the show, but you know what? Last minute.
And I gotta tell you, I really like the way ExCultBaby wrote this because been there myself. I know exactly what they're talking about. I know what they're going through. I mean, in my head, I can picture exactly what was going through their head when they wrote this. So I'm like,
I've had businesses that operate like this, and it's awful.
Oh, absolutely.
Awful.
Everybody who's ever been in retail, I'm sure has seen this. Is if they don't like you for whatever reason, whether you're competent or incompetent, whether you do your job or you don't, if there's some personality quirks with the people that they, for some reason, you have one that shit boss, they're going to make your life hell. They're going to demote you. They're not going to put you on the certain projects. They're going to give you the worst schedules. It's just. Look, that even happened in the military. Look, I actually did the scheduling on my boat for the watch stations. Okay, so I decided who got turbine watch, feed pump watch, rover watch, which was messenger watch, engine room supervisor, which was the coveted position, right? Because the engine room supervisor doesn't take logs. Basically, you walk around the entire plant to make sure that everything's functioning right. Then if you have an emergency, you have to take care. You know, you're the one that supervises it. So it's a lot of responsibility, but it's at the same time the least amount of work.
If nothing goes wrong, it's
right. Now, once I qualified interim supervisor and I was doing the scheduling, of course, I kind of wanted to give myself that watch station more than ever. You know, but I have to be fair, right? But you know, if there's somebody who's just been a royal shitbag, it's kind of given they're going to get the worst watch, which was turbine watch.
It's a little bit. The military is very specific about having a pecking order.
Yes.
That's kind of the way it operates, and a lot of offices will mirror or be very similar in pecking order, but you're playing a little bit different game of politics.
But I will tell you that when you do this, when you do the schedule, people tend to be nicer to you sometimes.
Oh,
just saying. And I did the schedule for probably about a good year and a half. So, I mean, I wasn't using it as a weapon or anything, but I'm not going to say that I didn't give some people that were just shit fucking people the worst watch every so often. Of course I did. I was the military. I mean, come on.
This isn't a call to action. I won't reprimand anyone for watching ACA shows. I mean, same with us, right? I don't think we've ever given people shit for watching garbage. It's like, hey, listen, you want to eat junk food, you eat junk food.
Yeah, look, I mean, I tell people the same thing. Watch what the hell you want. Just don't involve me. I'm not going to go watch their stuff. I
don't recall ever telling people not to watch the ACA shows.
Never. Now, I have said, I think it's questionable if people want to donate at this point, but I've never said don't donate.
I don't even, I also don't know what the big deal is sometimes by saying don't watch this person. Like, it's kind of like bad form, I guess, but I've noticed that people make a really big deal about it to the point that people go out of their way to avoid it. But I don't really know what the big deal is.
I don't think there's a big deal. I just don't really do it because I don't. If I tell people not to watch something, who's the hell going to listen to me?
Because you're going to get bullied because you gave an opinion.
But here's the thing: I also get clips from the ACA and things of that nature. So if nobody watched it, I'll never even know what the hell's going on because people do send me clips, and I appreciate it. People that send me, all you out there that have sent me clips to evaluate and review and weigh in on, don't stop. I do appreciate it, but because I don't watch the show directly, so
yeah.
Oh, somebody, can you read Alicia's comment?
Yes, in relation to the heathen thing, it makes it harder for pagans who follow a specific pantheon referred to as hedonism to find their community because the internet is oversaturated with heathens. Okay. That's actually a really good point.
I mean, okay, I can actually see that. I mean, that is a valid point of order to be had on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the rejoinder would basically be but how many people are actually doing that? But it might be a lot. But I mean, I can see that as a valid criticism. There's an actual conversation to be had.
I'm getting a huge sense of deja vu.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually.
I feel like we've had this conversation before.
Now, but I mean, honestly, because I'm not a pagan, I would be like, well, yes, but talk heathen is allowed to have any kind of name they want, and they're not obligated to work around the pagans. I just think
that's an interesting angle that I wouldn't have considered.
I didn't either. That's actually
If you take that into account and people are running around, remember when we all started putting engineer in our names because we thought it was really funny? Mm-hmm. It'd be like that. We've oversaturated everything with everybody being an engineer of some kind about some nonsense, and so it would make it difficult for people to actually suss out who are actually engineers. But that was kind of the point,
right? That exactly was the point, right? That was the whole message behind that.
Right, and I can understand, but I can also understand somebody who is a pagan being insulted by godless engineer identifying with you, and you don't want to be associated with godless engineer.
Here's a workaround for that. Well, I mean, it hasn't been implemented, but YouTube, if they ever really listen to people, because their way to search things is crap. Okay, but in Google, for example, if you put minus and then quotes and whatever, it's going to eliminate certain things from your searches. I don't think YouTube has the same thing. If you put like minus talk heathen, if you just want to find stuff related to heathen, now granted it's inconvenient for the pagans, I get that. But if it was be able to be searched like that, it certainly would help. But yeah, that's an answer. I really like the fact that person made a mention of that because I had not thought of that particular angle.
That's a really good point.
Maybe they should call in and talk more about that. But okay,
yeah, no, for sure.
The lines are open. You guys are welcome to come in as we talk about this.
I won't reprimand anyone for watching ACA shows or supporting them financially. I couldn't care less. Just know that I won't be, and keep in mind how they've treated me and countless others who have left or been forced out of the ACA. Edit for clarity. I wasn't fired. I could have continued to volunteer with the ACA in other ways or been an occasional co-host. At that point, I had already felt hurt and mistreated, so getting a demotion was pretty much it for me. I already wanted to talk about how I felt mistreated before I was removed as a host, but I felt that I couldn't make the organization I represented look bad with criticism. I had already been reprimanded for doing that before. I wasn't exclusively a host because Eric and V passed me the baton. I wanted to make positive change both within the organization and to the people who would watch and call in to talk heathen. I felt that I brought something unique to the table as a host, and I wanted to do it.
Yeah, and like I said, I've never watched them on Talk Heathen, so I don't know anything about their positions or how they interacted with the audience or how they dealt with phone calls. But I mean, I trust Eric that if he's going to give he really had a passion for Talk Heathen, and they did.
Yeah.
And I look, he may never say it publicly, but I'm not him. They screwed him over hard, in my opinion. But you know, if he gave it to ExCultBaby, he did so fully convinced that they were able to step in those shoes, man. Okay, so I think we have a caller. Wait a minute here. I heard a noise.
Hello.
Yes. Who's this? Hello. Caller. Can't hear you.
I hear some noise, but not them.
Sounds like road noise. Can you hear us?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
I heard two different callers.
Yes.
Hello.
How's it going?
Who's this?
Hey, who's this?
This is Rodent. No last name.
Hey, Rodent, how you doing?
What's up, my friend?
Yeah, one criticism that I'd like to make about the ACA.
Go for it.
Just one? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it's a foundational problem, is that they're falling into a dogmatic position. Like their particular take on atheism is the only take on atheism.
Yes. Yeah, that is dogmatism. I've always said that they are dogmatic. Matter of fact, just recently, a few of the more outspoken atheists have actually come around a little bit more and recognize that the ACA is dogmatic about it. Especially the ones getting into philosophy, like Alex O'Connor, aka Cosmic Skeptic, Rationality Rules. He was even recognizing lately that there's a philosophical reason to have other usages of the term that are much more narrow in scope. And so when the ACA and American atheists are telling people, hey, you know, Steve's wrong, you know, there's only one thing for atheism, it's nothing else. Anybody who says otherwise, they don't know what they're talking about, because that's what you find on Facebook, right? And you tell somebody on Facebook that atheism is a belief that God does not exist and watch them go after you. It's like murder hornets, you know? It's ridiculous.
There's definitely a line between those who have been educated in philosophy and those who have not, as well as a line between the ACA, which is very American and very Texas, versus Cosmic Skeptic and Rationality Rules are both from across the pond.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to an actual college to learn these subjects and going, hey, yeah, maybe there's more to it than this, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely some lines to be drawn there.
Yep.
Well, I also think it's kind of a social and group dynamic, that it's a defense mechanism, that you insulate yourself with common agreed terms, agreed concepts, and you start becoming resistant to any other things that challenge your positions.
Yeah, that's what isn't that the definitive definition of an echo chamber?
Well, to the point where it becomes problematic, right? Like, it's okay to have people that are sort of a support group for you that help you, but when it goes too far, you need to be there are pitfalls you've got to look out for, particularly when it comes to dogmatism. I would take it a step further and say, not only is the ACA dogmatic, not only is that on purpose, but I think it's predatory.
Yeah,
they prey on people who are coming. They're trying to get people to come out of theism, and instead of educating them, and instead of letting them detoxify or debrief about being dogmatic behaviors and bad logic, stuff like that, instead of giving them any kind of debrief time, they take this dogma, replace it with another one, and kick them out the door and go argue. You're smarter than everybody else now. And it's like you could see failure.
You could see an analogy in this in certain addiction groups, that you can only get off of drugs in this particular way, and then good luck.
Yeah, well, look at the one from Scientology, Narcon or something like that, which has obviously major issues. But yeah, you're right, and it is predatory in that in regard, because I have actually had more than I can probably remember people tell me. I came out of theism, I stopped believing, I went through the ACA kind of stuff and listened to the Atheist Experience, and then I realized that they were telling me misinformation, and I didn't want to again fall into that same trap. I've had so many people tell me this, it's unreal. because they were like, no,
and they feel like they've been lied to.
They
The
feel like they're
exact
lied
same
to.
way
Yeah.
they felt like they were lied to with that. The ACA made them feel like they were lied to in religion, and now they feel lied to here. And there's just no winning. You are setting people up for failure, and you are trying, like their audience, the people they're trying to talk to and to get a hold of are people who are in a set state of crisis of faith, and I think that's predatory.
Yeah, I agree.
You're taking people who you know are vulnerable.
Is there any examples in the live chat of people that came out of religion, got exposed to the ACA type of thinking, and then realized that they were being lied to as well? Other than, there are people that came out of religion and they did so reading books from like Mackey and Oppie and, the actual philosophers that have arguments that, hey, look, there's no God. Those people seem to be a lot more in tune with the arguments and a lot more in tune with how to go about addressing people that are in theism, rather than, oh, I just don't believe you. So I'm wondering if there's anybody listening in the live chat that had gone through this experience, because again, I have a lot of people message me, so I know a few of you are out there.
You mean the atheist experience?
How many of you have had the atheist experience and realized they were full of shit? Press one in the audience if you have gone through that. Give me a 1.
I'll go back to Cheshire's mention of pitfalls, and I think one of the pitfalls is they could fall into becoming a cult without a religious dogma, but still being a dogma in their own regimental concepts. Yeah,
it's a cult-like mentality. Now, look, I don't throw around the cult term lightly, so I don't think the ACA is a cult, but I think that they definitely implement cult-like things that you'll find in a typical cult.
Dogma is definitely part of being a cult, and it is certainly possible that one or more of the people that are part of the ACA could spin off into a cult should they so desire. And it'd be less of a cult in a God sense and more of a personality cult. Now, I'm not convinced that they're quite there yet. I would say that.
But that's one of the dangers they could fall into.
Yes, it is certainly a pitfall that it could potentially go that direction. It is certainly possible. Even if it's not going to be one of the people that are there now, they're setting people up for failure in the future also. So they could have somebody who's just a Kent Hovind essentially show up and be like, oh, look at me, I'm amazing. You should just listen to whatever I have to say, and then turn it in and just spin it off. The left
cough, cough, Jimmy Snow, cough, cough.
I wasn't gonna necessarily say that the closest person to causing a cult personality may or may not have been Jimmy Snow, if you're familiar at all with his Discord. I don't know.
I would say that they definitely have that pitfall to avoid, but I think they have crossed the boundary over what I would be calling fundamentalism or evangelicalism, atheism evangelicals.
Definitely.
Yeah, so even though they're not even, the funniest part is they're not even evangelical about atheism specifically, or evangelical about their promotion of what they think atheism is, and basically non-belief. Which, okay, that's fine, but you're not promoting atheism. What you're promoting is non-belief. Which, again, if you do so honestly, I don't have a position with that. An agnostic would, who says, hey, I think people should be agnostic, they would be promoting non-belief. Now, I'm not one of those agnostics. I don't give a shit, but I can see a group forming around that going, look, we don't care whether you're an atheist or agnostic. We just don't want you to believe the Bible and religion and creationism, and they're all intermingled, because we think that because when people do believe it, it has a negative effect on society, hashtag anti-theism, that, there's political ramifications, there's creationists taught in school. There's an argument to be had for that. There really actually is. They're not the ones making it like that, though. They're not having that argument.
They're not able to get to step 2. What was it? Step 2. Like, now it seems that we've got Cosmic Skeptic able to get to the next part of the conversation, but Matt is not capable or able or willing to have that part of the conversation.
Because it would make him look bad.
Because of that, it shuts. Well, of course it would. Yeah.
It would just, his ego couldn't take, and Arn the same way. Arn, like people who know, Arn has specifically said to me, if I was right on this, it would have basically destroyed his life work. I mean, hyperbolic much. So yeah, they cannot change it. Look, I can change my position anytime, and it's not going to affect me that much. I can say, look, I come to the conclusion there's a God and become a theist, or I come to the conclusion there is no God. Either way I go, I'm allowed to change my position based upon more information. That's honest integrity, right? When you think that you have more information acquired and you formulate a conclusion. Now, I mean, I have gotten to the point where I've said, look, I believe hell doesn't exist. I think that's complete bullshit. I believe that the way that the Christian God is described in the Bible doesn't exist. I think that any kind of omnipotent being in the logical evident or logical problem evil sense doesn't exist. I mean, I can make these types of affirmative statements, but they're not interested in the nuances of those types of dialogues, and they don't even want to go far as saying, hey, look, these other positions even exist. What they have said is these other positions are tainted by Christianity. If you read a paper, or if you read a book and it says atheism is a belief, they're automatically have said that is tainted by Christianity, and that to me is where they've completely jumped the shark.
I've definitely seen that a couple of times where it's just like, oh, this is this. I saw somebody saying that about like homophobia and transphobia and transphobic rhetoric, and saying that, oh, that's not really real. That's just, you're just been indoctrinated by the media. And it's like, what the fuck?
Right.
I'll make a quick point before I bail out. In defense of Dillahunty, he has been confronting the exact same bad arguments from the theist side, that it's very easy to shortcut the conversations and be angry and combative, because he's heard it.
I agree with you on that. And that's why the hang up.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's why you have the hang up.
But right? It's also a rut for him. It's a very easy thing for him to fall into without listening to his interlocutor.
Right, but
you're saying he's disassociating with the callers.
But for example, he would never, for a fact, he would never honestly do a critique of my work. He wouldn't do it. Never. I mean, he knows that he's not going to find a problem with it. I mean, it's just, sure, could there be a problem? Absolutely. But if I have enough people that know the topic, evaluate it, and they really can't find anything, why would I expect Matt to? So he's not going to want to have those types of arguments, right? So, yeah, I mean, he always says people, hey, give me a logical value argument. And then when you do, he poo-poos on it. Same thing with ours, a Cosmic Skeptic. Cosmic Skeptic's argument for veganism is not a bad argument. Is it convincing? No. If it was, I'd be a vegan. It's not a bad argument.
What's happened is that
I think Matt has gotten a little lazy.
Clearly.
He looks for the simple arguments that he can easily defeat, because he's done this for
and then
so
he personally
long.
Attacks people over it, though, and that's where I think he's
start drawing lines. Right. I think that there's something that's happened with Matt that you can see it if you kind of like stretch out the time period and you look at Matt from early on, and then you look at Matt, then you look at like Faith is Form, and then you look at like now. And there seems to be a shift where Matt went from somebody who was willing to have the conversations to somebody who was more abrasive and less willing, and to somebody who's turned into a gimmick. He is the gimmick of hanging up on people. Now, you don't call into a show that Matt Dillahunty is on and expect to be listened to.
And that's why I've never called in, or would I? People have said, well, I've had people actually tell me, why don't you confront Matt with your arguments? I'm like, Matt knows my arguments. People don't think Matt knows my arguments. Come on. I'm like, what'd be the point? Because it's gimmicky at that point.
Just because someone's wrong doesn't mean you need to confront them on it.
Right. I mean, if he really wanted to address my arguments, he has a platform. He could, and he won't, because he'd probably butcher them no end. And honestly, my atheist semantic collapse argument is only I only have a short form out there on my blog. My long form is not released yet; it's not public. But my long form, who anybody has read it can tell you, it's very, very formalized.
Yes. All right.
One last thing, and then one last thing I'll get out. The problem with having a complete logical argument and discussion is it can also be very, very boring. And you do have to strike a balance between making a point and also being entertaining.
I totally agree with that, too.
That's why we've got Steve and why we've got me.
Yeah. We don't know which one she is. She's the entertaining one.
Steve's boring.
But you're right. No, you're right. No, and look, if the ACA is entertaining to people, I totally get that, right? It's entertaining. But this is the problem. People take them as being the authoritative source on atheism, and I'm sorry, they're not. They're absolutely not authoritative, and they're absolutely wrong on some of the things they put out when it comes to atheism. So you don't want to use them as a citation.
You run into problems when you start having, like, if you want to change the analogy, you change it to like news. It's a problem when the Late Show or the Daily Show is better at providing you more accurate news than the news.
and that has happened, right? These later shows, you know, all of them, they actually, like Jon Stewart and
Stephen Colbert,
they actually came
more
better at the news, right? Exactly. But they're entertaining.
One of my roommates quipped brilliantly. He said, "Between the Daily Show and the Onion, I'm surprisingly well informed."
Yeah.
Yeah, the Onion. Yeah, so it's weird. Sometimes the Onion actually makes a really good point, even they don't know it. But it's actually, you know, they're very thought provoking. But awesome, thank you, my friend.
I'll make room for other callers.
Awesome.
Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Have a good day.
All right, we have another caller on the line. Hello, other caller.
Hello, who dis?
Who is this?
Who dis?
Who dis? I actually know who it is. Is that Mr. Serious?
I think we're here to talk about stonks all of a sudden. I think he clicked his mic over and needs to switch it back. Oh no!
Did you click your mic? Mr. Serious? Is that who it was? Because I think I heard his voice.
I think he got insulted that we joked about not recognizing him immediately, and now he's trolling us.
I think he clicked the mic.
I think he clicked the mic.
Well, he figures that out. All right, let's go back to the Twitters here. So.
Okay, which one are you on? I'm looking at the picture of Matt Dillahunty sending ExCultBaby after this
I got it.
After this multi-tweet thread of them explaining how they felt about things, Matt decided to DM this poor person and say, "Not sure why you felt the need to lie, ellipses, but that's your choice." And then they responded with, "Lamau, okay, boomer."
Yeah, I love these accusations of lying, especially from Matt, who is absolutely unequivocally has lied about me multiple times. Just recently has even lied about me by getting my positions wrong, saying I was a dog with a bone on these positions, and making my position prescriptive, which it isn't. So I don't think he wants to understand my position properly. If he doesn't, or if he does, he's just outright lying about it. But I mean, these accusations of anybody that criticizes him that their person's lying or there's something personal about them. This is what the route that both Matt and Aaron has actually seemed to have done, and I don't understand why they go that route. I'm assuming people are lying. It's like, well, you know, you said this is what it actually is. You know, is that a truthful statement first? Have a little bit of a principle of charity.
This screenshot bothers me in so many ways, and I talked about it on Dumbfeck Friday if you want to hear a little bit more about it. But we have some more callers. Who we got? Who's here?
This is actually an area code that I actually know off the top of my head.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
hello. Who dis?
I'm not going to say where you're from, but I know your area code quite well.
I'm Autumn from Notes from Autumn.
Oh, hey, Autumn.
Oh my goodness, Autumn.
Wait a
hello,
minute. You're actually a local to me.
Oh, are you in San Diego?
I'm 2 hours north of San Diego.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm in Sun City.
Yeah, I'm in San Diego. I was calling because I just feel like you guys have like a little bit of like misinformation. So I just kind of wanted to call in and like maybe help with some like correct information.
That would be awesome.
Yes, please.
We don't mind that at all.
Okay.
We won't hang up on you for calling us wrong.
She will,
it's okay.
but no. She doesn't have control.
Okay, well, thank you. I feel like you guys could probably have this conversation, so that's why I called in. Well, first of all, just to correct the whole Twitter debacle from before, I actually watched your stream. You had very like uncharitable interpretations of everything that I was saying. I think you were upset that I actually did not remember my previous interaction with Steve on Twitter. Like, I just talked to a ton of people on Twitter. I didn't know who Steve was. Wasn't lying about that. So.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think you were lying about that. I think you probably just didn't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember the conversation because I just, like, to me, everybody on Twitter is just a face until we've had more conversations.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I just talk to everybody. So I had been told by a friend that basically it was like self-fulfilling prophecy, because then there was a video made about me calling me a dumb bitch and very uncharitable.
That was probably me.
that was you.
I don't remember this. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
No, this is my. I featured your conversation on DemFec Friday.
Oh, I didn't watch
because
it,
I was
sorry.
like, this conversation read as if like there were gaps in what was being said, like very clear gaps, and like this is what's being said here, but this is what's being said here, and these things are not matching. Now, getting an explanation, it seems that there was confusion on that you were talking about two different things, if that's what you're saying.
Right. So, again, Twitter's like not a great platform for clarity. So like a better approach might have been to like, I don't know, ask me what I meant by these things rather than just going with the least charitable interpretation of everything that I'm saying, and calling me names and stuff like that. That's just, it's not something I typically do. Like name calling is acceptable in some, like for like everybody can do their own thing. But to me, it was like, if you're going to complain about people being charitable and fair and having better dialogue on the ACA, like you're accountable to doing that yourself. So that's one thing.
So my question is then, to be clear,
that's not the main reason I called in though, because I just wanted to clear up some information about like some of the crossover between the line and the ACA. Some of my talks
please.
About
yeah, please.
So the line is owned by Jimmy, and this is just my understanding is that Matt is employed by Jimmy through the line. And so it's separate from the ACA. The ACA is a nonprofit, and the lack of transparency, it's like they legally have to show their tax documents. So they could say we're transparent because we show our tax documents, but the tax documents don't tell you what they spend the money on. And I'm confused that if they don't pay the host, everybody's a volunteer. They have like 2 or 3 employees, I think, total, and then they contract like people for things, which is good. But it's just like if your entire service is talking about religion online, like, and you're not paying the people who are talking about religion online, I don't understand where the money's going. And so that's what I mean when I'm like asking for transparency. Right. And, you know, it seems like Matt's made comments putting people down for leaving the ACA to start for-profit shows when he's getting paid by Jimmy. So I don't understand why he would put people down for something like that when if you're providing a service, I don't understand why you would be shamed for like wanting to be like fairly compensated.
I agree with that. And let me there's a couple things that I want to point out on this. First of all, I've not insulted you in any way on Twitter or off Twitter or on air or anything. So I didn't watch Her Feckless Friday, so I can't even address that. No offense, I didn't watch. I usually do.
No, I'm not offended.
But
I'm honored that Autumn watched it and was still willing to come and clarify and talk to me. Right? So I appreciate the whole thing.
So when it comes to the transparency, I know they have to do taxes, but the taxes don't do a line item where they actually say where they don't break down the accounting as far as where the money has gone specifically. Unfortunately, that's the transparency that you're asking for, from what I understand, right? Which I think is appropriate. It's not legally mandated, but if we as non-believers, right, want churches to have that kind of transparency, which I absolutely think that they should, because people are donating money to them and people are spending it on buying Gulfstreams and cars and houses, and misappropriation of funds is rampant among these types of religions, then it absolutely is fair to say you want the same thing from groups like the Atheist Experience. Now, as Matt being an employee of Jimmy, even though it's not officially part of the ACA lineup, clearly there's overlap there. And as you know, because you now have seen things, you know, there has been obviously bad blood with Matt Dillahunty and I, because I think he's dishonest when it comes to these types of discussions, and huge amount of bad blood because Jimmy, I firmly believe, helped my partner in some way, implicitly, I should say, steal $60,000 from the fans, including half of which was mine, plus my channel. So, you know, when Matt is streaming with Jimmy and basically giving him the, oh, you know, I'm streaming with you even though you did this to Steve, that to me is well, one, is personal, but it's overlapping with the ACA that he affiliates with, because now I just put them all in one big communal pot of dishonesty, if that makes sense. It definitely
is confusing if you've got Matt, I'm on the board, Dillahunty, running around encouraging fraud or enabling it, or defamation, and there was a huge blow up about people being upset about Jimmy saying that, trying to guilt his fans, or people felt like he was guilting his fans into watching his show so he could pay Matt Dillahunty. Like, he didn't add that part in there. He didn't say, oh, I have to pay Matt Dillahunty. Like, nobody, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be like, what? Why should we care?
Well, and I mean, I only remember, like, I think Matt saying that on the show, or to me, or like, so at this point, that evidence is anecdotal. Like, I don't have proof that Jimmy's paying Matt, but I just remember, like, knowing that. I just remember hearing that from, like, somebody like Jimmy or Matt at some point. So, you know, take anecdotal
but
evidence.
Shouldn't somebody be able to ask him?
will.
I mean, shouldn't that be a fair question? If somebody asked Cheshire, Steve paying you to be on Judgment Call, her answer would clearly be yes, and that's a fair question to ask. I don't mind if somebody asked her that. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I don't even have to be transparent about it. I'm not an LLC.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
501, 105, whatever.
And
506, 12, 12, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, whatever.
Numbers, I don't know.
She's Canadian. Don't expect her to know these things.
yeah, so then there's the other misinformation is, like, I was not booted from the ACA. It's just, I know that the moment that like, the moment that I said that I don't like Matt's behavior, I know that means I'm never on an ACA show ever again. I just volunteered for them a little bit. Like, here, I made a TikTok account for them. I modded for some of their shows. I was a guest host on a couple of shows, and I'm sure I would have been invited back had I not originally spoke out against Matt and Jimmy's behavior, which is a whole, like, laundry list of things.
Oh, sure.
Like public and private information that accumulated to make me make that decision of, like, okay, like, I'm sorry, but, like, there's no point in doing atheist activism if we just endorse atrocious behavior on the other side.
Right. And yeah, you weren't fired. Yeah.
Is, like, the whole thing about beliefs is, like, I only care what people believe because of how it affects their behavior. And if people behave horribly as an atheist, why do I care that they're an atheist? Like, it doesn't matter. So
I think we all agree with you on that.
I wasn't booted from the ACA, and actually I have a lot of love still for a good number of people that work with the ACA. And I think that they do have engaging conversations. I know old school wise, like, there have been times where, like, there's just terrible arguments done on ACA shows, a lot of straw manning, a lot of making fun of theists. And that's kind of, like, my whole point is that, like, kind of what you guys are saying, like, as a nonprofit, if you're providing a service, like, fine if it's a for-profit business and they want to, like, you know, have their fun and do their own style. But if it's a nonprofit, they should be teaching skepticism and, like, engaging in charitable conversation. And there's a ton of mind reading that goes on camera and off camera. Like, they'll just read people's minds. And it's like Matt calling Rudy a liar. That is mind reading. That's not communication. That's not saying, like, why did you say these things?
Right. He wasn't interested in dialogue of what Rudy's mindset was at all.
Well, the reason this screenshot or this message from Matt Dillahunty bothers me is because it's intimidation. It's an attempt to intimidate this person into behaving or taking down or changing what they're saying. There's no like they say later on, they say, hey, other people from the ACA have expressed condolences or have expressed curiosity as to more about what I'm talking about. Matt Dillahunty decided to swing in and slide into my DMs and call me a liar. When you're in the position of board member Matt Dillahunty, and you're in this position with that you've stuck yourself in with Jimmy Snow, as well as Nate the Liar, as well as, like, these handful of people, you're building up this intimidation factor. We had Matt swinging in, commenting on something on an accusation that Steve and his friends, including, like, me and Red's Rhetoric and a couple other people, had threatened or intimidated or harassed Kyle, or the judge, or Kyle's lawyer. I think it was Kyle's lawyer.
Yeah.
And Matt was coming in sideways at Red's Rhetoric, asking Red's Rhetoric to prove Nate's claim.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
And it's like,
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm Matt Dillahunty, you should blah 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 blah. And so, like, in what world does it make sense for somebody who's trying to promote positive atheism and be focused on activism, who's getting paid by Jimmy Snow, who's supporting a rape apologist, to come in sideways about a legal case of somebody that he has beef with over the definition of atheism from 3 years ago? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, and don't forget that Matt Dillahunty actually even said, I mean, he was talking about Ben, who's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He knows nothing about Ben, but he basically outright explicitly said, okay, so the result, basically he said, the case is determined upon the word of a drunk, of Kyle's ex-boyfriend. Congratulations on your win, Kyle. I mean, he had no idea what the case was about. He never read anything about the case. He didn't know Ben. Nate the Liar had said that I had said Ben, was lying, and that I knew Kyle had moved, and he was interjecting all this bullshit. And of course, Matt just runs with it. He literally had said that this guy was a drunk and that it all hinged on the word of a drunk. When, by the way, hashtag this guy was absolutely right, and Kyle did commit perjury. He's being charged with perjury. So yeah, there's a lot of when we hear these types of stories with Matt and with you and with ExCultBaby and with the Talk Heathen host and all these other things, it's very familiar to us. It is because they come in, with their dicks wagging, going, oh, I'm Matt Dillahunty. Everything I say must be true, even though we know for a fact that he's gotten multiple things wrong and refused to correct it. You came in, you gave us some things that we, probably need to correct in some regard, and I appreciate that, and I absolutely will. I do think that, though, for the tax things, I think I did understand you properly, because I understand you want more of a line detail of where the money goes. Not that they don't have to put out their taxes. They do as a 501c3, right?
Right, and maybe I'm just not understanding, but like Matt's claimed now on a recent stream on a smaller channel, and he claimed privately to me that they got $1 million from a couple of billionaires in the beginning, and I don't see that on the 990s, but maybe I'm just not understanding where that $1 million is.
You know what? So, Peter Riley should check out their finances, because that's his.
That would be interesting, yeah.
But like, and I didn't make that video to be like, oh, you're doing nothing but a horrible job. It was like, if you guys have such a big platform, like, you should be held to really high standards if you're representing atheism as a nonprofit. Yeah. Like that's where I'm coming from. And I was
your video was incredibly cordial. It was like it's so cordial in a way that I was baffled by how kind it was to them.
And to the point, it was very succinct. It wasn't like an hour-long rant. It was 15 some odd minutes of this is what we should see. What for an organization of what they're doing. And by the way, I think one of the most poignant things you pointed out was there's supposed to be a community outreach program, not really doing that much outreach. And where is that money going for that?
Yeah, so is the ACA getting paid?
If they're doing it, they just need to be a lot more public about it. Because like, if they're doing, I want to hear about it. If they're moving atheism in a positive direction, I want to hear about it. I want them to promote that. That's a good thing. Like
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I was going to say, as far as the intimidation factor goes, Matt definitely did that to me, and that's part of what, like, that was part of the straw that broke the camel's back. Is if you're going to come in as a large influential creator, or like speaker, or whatever you want to call him, and the member of the ACA board, and go around HR to try and intimidate me in my DMs, like, fuck you. Like as I'm like,
100%.
I not to like infantilize myself, but if you think about it, it's like, I'm a young woman, I'm a small content creator. That is super inappropriate to try to scare me. Because he was like, asking me like, what dirt do you think you have on the ACA, rather than just asking me questions about why. Yeah, it was super inappropriate. And I tried to talk to the ACA about that interaction, because that was part of why I was trying to have these conversations. I think there's some unhealthy things that happen, especially off camera, in those circles.
Look at Jimmy Snow. That's exactly what happened. I mean, a lot of his stuff was off camera. Stuff that I've been warning people about Jimmy Snow for 2 years. They didn't listen. But real quick though, I wanted to point this out that, I know you didn't get fired from the ACA, but when anybody has had any kind of jobs where they say, look, we're going to put you in the worst positions, they want you to quit, kind of thing. In fact, this happened to me with Kyle when he was doing, the scheduling, because that was one thing he was supposed to be doing, and he wasn't scheduling any of the guests that were coming to me that I had scheduled, and he was not putting me on on the episodes, and I'm like, wait a minute here, this my show. It's half and half, and he's like, people are like, oh well, you know, he basically fired you. He's like, what? You can't fire a business partner. But what he did was he just never put me on the schedule. And then, but Boolinator, who our producer, got pissed at that. And of course, if he's producing the show, you know, he has a say in this, and that's when he kicked the producer off the show as well. So,
right.
And now we've been in litigation 2 years.
And that's essentially, like, I knew that was going to start happening to me probably anyway, because my alarm bells were going off about a few things with the Jimmy situation, like just being inappropriate with fans and
correct, and
like using his power in the wrong way, and not even able to, like, if you've done something and maybe you didn't realize that you were, like, somehow you didn't realize that you were abusing your power, that would be the time to really own it and be like, this was super inappropriate. I get why it's super inappropriate, because if a pastor was preying on people's vulnerabilities, the atheist community would never shut up about it. So, I
couldn't agree with you more.
This is, have you gotten, out of curiosity, have you gotten people coming to you saying that, well, you're actually just a theist that's trying to take down atheists?
No, this is the first time I've ever criticized anybody in the atheist community openly, because I've always tried to, like, with the ACA, like, I tried to talk to people and actually communicate and actually, like, work out problems. But the problem is like, I kept getting shut down and trying to do that. The video I made never would have been made if people would just have had a decent conversation with me. But like, it's such a long story. I would take up like your entire stream trying to explain everything.
Well, they did say, that kind of sounds like they thought you weren't worth. There. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try to pass judgment, but just from what you've said, though, it sounds like they didn't deem you worthy enough to have this discussion with.
Right.
And that's
part of it.
Ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's from, whether you're a small content creator or not. But I know from experience that Matt Dillahunty and a few other people from that side of the fence will try to bulldoze people. They'll just walk all over you. Now, they knew they couldn't do it with me.
They do it to large creators too. Like, the thing is that
True.
I think a lot of large creators, they just don't want that kind of conversation on their platform, so they don't mention it. But like, there's been open things that have happened where Matt's been inappropriate to large creators, and then nobody says two words about it. Like on Twitter, like Matt's interaction with Cosmic Skeptic, where he just had a completely train wreck of a conversation. Matt also had a train wreck of a conversation publicly on Twitter with Holy Kool-Aid. And then there's private things I know large creators have dealt with people like that. And they just don't say anything because, like, I guess I understand wanting to keep the peace, but there's a certain point when you need to talk about these behaviors, because if the whole reason why we're talking about atheism is to have, like, healthy behavior and healthy communities, then we can't just look the other way when unhealthy stuff is happening. And that doesn't mean we need to get our pitchforks. It means that people need to own up to things, even if they have a history of like whatever 16 years of talking about atheism. That doesn't mean you don't have to own up to the things that you're doing that are damaging.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, I mean, you're literally preaching to the choir at this point, so to speak. Yeah. Because I watched that thing transpire with Alex, and Alex and I have had great conversations in the past. He and Rationality Rules are two atheists that I've never spoke ill of, because they've never made things personal, whether they agreed with me or not. They never went personal. Matt has, and Alex.
Matt has when he doesn't think he wins.
Yeah, and that's what he did with Alex. Alex, like I said, I'm not convinced per se by his argument, but his argument is nothing that you should just throw away by fiat. It is something that can be a valid argument to have a conversation with, but Matt wasn't prepared for that, and I just think that he just lost his shit with Alex. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened with Holy Kool-Aid there. That's news to me, but we do have a quick super chat real quick.
Godless Scummer for 2 said, "Thanks, Autumn, for raising important questions."
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. You're going to send me the money for that super chat, Steve?
Well,
it'd be like 49 cents.
Next time we have a rum and coke.
I'm joking.
Next time we have a rum and coke night, I'll send you something so you can have a beer with us or something.
Okay, thank you very much.
But we appreciate it very much. So
too much more of your time, but yes, I just wanted to clarify a few things. So
No, and
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
that was perfect.
Look, if you look, this is the opposite of the ACA. You know, if you think that we've got something wrong, we love when people try to correct the record. It's just
I am convinced that the line is anti non sequitur. I'm convinced.
the line is it's the antithetical non sequitur show. But yeah, Adam, like I said, I seriously, your video, all of us admired because we know what happens when you speak out against these groups. We know exactly what they're capable of doing, and I'm not saying that they're going to, like, you know, destroy your lives like people have tried to do with Justire and I. We have people from that side of the fence that have gone very personal, that have involved themselves in lawsuits that they should have nothing to do with, and used, you know, people's deaths as weapons, and they're supported by the ACA, and unfortunately they can't extricate themselves from that any longer. They're literally supporting the people that have caused harm to other people, and nowadays people are seeing this and they're having issues with it because, you know, you can't run away from the history, and the history speaks for itself. Jimmy Snow has a long history. Matt Dillahunty has a long history. You know, so. But anyways, I appreciate what your video had to say. So
yeah, it was really good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Keep up the good work. That video was on point.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Autumn.
Have a good
Appreciate
day.
it. You too.
Bye.
And I think somebody else snuck in here.
That was
Can you
lovely.
guys hear me yet?
That was a good call.
Hey, we can hear Mr. Serious.
Yeah, that was a very good call.
Oh
I
my
appreciate
gosh.
Hi.
that.
How you doing?
You know what? I'm going to put that as one of the top 5 calls we've ever had.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Autumn was great. Thank you for calling, Autumn. I actually sat patiently in silence, enjoying every minute of that.
Yeah, she's well.
Which is really hard for me to do.
I think if anything, she probably has a lot more to tell. But as she said, it would take a very long time. But you know, as time progresses, I think that obviously she will win. And when she knows that she has a lot of support and people can see that they're threatening her, and I don't mean like threatening physically, but I mean intimidating wise. But she knows she has support. Then people are a lot more willing to come forward with things. And
I'd love to talk to her more
well.
about it because there's so much.
Yeah, I was going to
right?
say, actually, I know you should probably, you know, reach out there and be on your channel for that. Mr. Serious, there was another caller too. Can I just ask who that was real quick because they're sitting in here?
Sure.
Yeah, who's the other caller real quick?
Hi, it's Al.
Oh, it's Al. Hi, Al.
Hi, how are you all?
This is Al Rubel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What up?
I was just thinking about a bunch of different things, but mostly when Autumn was talking, I was starting to think about how V and Eric have their show now, and how you posted that video of Matt talking to that other person named Steve, and you know, that Steve had your argument, your WASP argument.
Yeah, I know who that Steve is.
And then
it's not me, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a voice changer or something.
No, it's not me. I know who they are.
And the way that the two different approaches they had, with Matt immediately cutting him off when he said that atheism is a positive assertion, you know, and then he said, no, it's not that. And V's like, some people think it is. And then they gave this weird look to each other, and it's like everything about like the breakdown of relationships within the ACA is like contained within that exchange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know what clip you're referring to. People wanted me to review it, but I felt no reason to. But I do know what you're talking about. Yeah. And you're right. It encapsulates everything in a nutshell because, you know, my WASP argument.
It's the opposition of people who want to stick to a dogmatism and rigidly hold to something because it makes it convenient and pragmatic to be like, oh no, we don't need to hold to anything.
But they can hold. But here's the thing: they can hold it whatever they want. The problem is no matter what they hold to, it doesn't negate the WASP argument.
They tell other people they're wrong for holding a different position.
Yeah, I mean, you can
can
hold any position you want. My WASP argument doesn't care. It's absolutely irrelevant. It is an if then else, right? Those are conditional statements, and so if it's an if then else conditional statement, you don't have to accept any particular position on it.
An argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know this voice.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's how they get around it, because they'll focus on the minutia having to do with, like, you know, positive or negative atheism rather than talk about the argument, because it doesn't matter what definition you use for the WASP argument. It doesn't matter. You could say atheism is the belief that aliens exist. It doesn't matter. The WASP argument is a logical argument. not a semantic argument. It is an argument that
Chesh,
stems from logic.
How does Chesh know? How does Chesh know I'm not Panda?
Oh, okay, listen, that is the only reason I know is because Panda doesn't watch this shit.
We have like identical voices.
Oh my god, you have to double take it most of the time.
Yeah, we also still got Mr. Serious in here, by the way. Just if you.
So basically, we're saying that Matt doesn't address arguments when there are actually arguments to be had.
He asks for an argument and then dismisses the argument.
Correct, and
He shuts them down before they even
but that's lots of.
He's in a script. He's scripted himself.
But the people that have had some educations, why do you think that a lot of them support my channel? Is because they see that and they're like, wait a minute, these people have studied these topics and go, oh, okay, if you want to argue Steve's argument, argue his argument. Don't sit there and play these word games where, well, it's not this or that. It doesn't matter. Again, this is logic, not semantics. But anyways,
that's because I think there is time to have the semantic argument. I really want to. I'm really hoping that Cosmic Skeptic and Rationality Rules will actually have both reached step 2 of the conversation, which is the semantic conversation. There's nothing wrong with talking about semantics. It's just not when it doesn't apply. Yeah. But I really would love to have the conversation who want to use the lack theism version and what their reasoning is. I tried to have this conversation with David Smalley and he just completely did not address the question at all.
Because he was completely being dishonest. There was no way
have
around
you been
that.
in a debate though?
But that's the mindset. That's the mindset that the ACA fosters, is the David Smalley's mindset, right? And so he wouldn't be capable of having those types of discussions, which he wasn't capable of having those kinds of discussions. And it was demonstrable. I mean, we could see that. But I think, obviously, clearly, Alex O'Connor and Rationality Rules can have those types of discussions. And the fact that Rationality Rules, as like I said, was very, very cordial.
They're mature enough.
Yeah, I mean, he reached out to me and he's like, Steve, I got this. Don't worry. When I'm talking about gatekeeping, I am talking about what you've been arguing, is that these people have been arguing atheism as only a specific thing and completely ignoring the philosophical aspects of it. And I think Rationality Rules realizes there's more to it, because I had that discussion several years ago before he entered college level on this stuff. And he was just, again, parroting what the ACA kind of stuff was parroting. But over the years, I think he's gone his own route, and I think he's gone his own path. And, of course, he's gotten a lot of flack for it. But at the same token, people that respect him and his knowledge have appreciated that, and they have distanced themselves from the ACA. I mean, go look at some of the people I have in my live chat, like Trolley Dave or Answers and Reasons, and some other philosophical people.
My favorite was Landon. My favorite was Landon explaining how he had a conversation with Richard Dawkins, and Richard Dawkins was like, "Yeah, no, I stay away from those people."
Yeah, and Richard Dawkins was right. I mean, even he doesn't want to have anything to do with some of those quote new atheists for that very reason. If you want,
absolutely blew my mind. I was like, "Oh no!"
I'm sorry, but the ACA is not a place to go learn about atheism. Or as even Anna pointed out, she kind of touched on humanism or secularism in some aspects. Those are great topics, and I think that there absolutely should be organizations that promote secularism and humanism. I have no issue with that, because that is what's affecting society. None of us want things like creationism taught in school. But I tell you that just because the ACA doesn't want that doesn't mean they know fuck all about philosophy or atheism, which is their name. It's the atheist experience. It's not the secular experience. It's not the humanist experience. It is atheism. And when people, like Cheshire had pointed out, when they're coming out of religion and they realize they have so much misinformation, and then they go to another group about atheism and they're giving misinformation, as Autumn pointed out, that doesn't do any good for the organization. It doesn't put a good light. I'm sorry, but Matt Dillahunty has become toxic to the atheist movement. Period. And so is Jimmy Snow.
I have had some ideas about that I'd like to run by you. Sure. Kind of about the origin, maybe, of how all of this even came to be. And I think I may have figured it out, because I think I was kind of there, because I was even watching the ACA kind of when Matt was new to it, because I kind of was watching Hitchens. Hitchens was like the very first
everybody has watched Hitchens, right?
Stuff.
Yeah, that's
that I ever watched.
Everybody.
And I didn't even know atheist stuff existed. I was kind of coming to these like ideas on my own, and I reached out to see if anybody thought like me, and I found Hitchens, and I was like, oh my god, there are other people out there like me. Oh my god, so then I found the ACA. That the next thing I found was the ACA, helped me. But I think that where Matt has been self-taught, everything that he teaches now, but all of the things that he teaches now have been learned by trying to figure out good ways to stump somebody in a debate.
It's very much like debate oriented, is what you're saying. Like the conversations, yeah.
Atheist might be very dishonest and not make any sense, but when he says it, it stumps people, so it must be the right way to go.
Yeah.
There's a really big difference between having the conversations, not being able to have the conversations, saying you're trying to have the conversation when all you're doing is actually shutting down the conversation. There's something that I think people forget because so much of the online world is based on what you say. But it's important to remember to judge people based off of their behavior, not their words all the time. If somebody says they're sorry, are they really sorry? How do they behave? And that behavior is what dictates whether or not that apology is hollow or valid, right? This is why just because somebody said sorry to you doesn't mean you have to accept their apology right away. You can say, you know what, I'm going to keep you at arm's length. I'm going to see if this is real, and I'm going to go from there.
Which is something we just talked about the other day. And I think this is actually a good lead into something that is a paradox on this particular topic, if not mistaken. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yes, let's talk about that real quick.
Lead in. So we're shifting a little bit of gears here, but I think that you'll see how it dovetails quite nicely.
Yes, this is something called that Evans Murphy brought up on Twitter, and I talked about it correctly and incorrectly on Dumbfuck Friday. It's called the paradox of intolerance, because I kind of started talking about the implementation and the effect it was having instead of actually explaining it first, which I should have done. So luckily Feline redirected me to doing things in the right order. The paradox of tolerance, first described by Karl Popper, I'm getting this off of Wikipedia, by the way, in 1945, is a decision theory paradox. The paradox states that if a society is tolerant without limit, their ability to be tolerant will eventually be seized or destroyed by the intolerant. Popper came to the seemingly paradoxical conclusion that in order to maintain a tolerant society, the society must be intolerant of the intolerant.
And I think this conclusion actually has clear rational sense to it.
Oh, absolutely. How do you be tolerant of violence against women? How do you be tolerant?
There's certain things that it's okay to be intolerant of. It's not a bad thing. How do you be tolerant of what happened in Charlottesville whenever that lady got hit by a car because there were people basically chanting slurs and they were trying to counter protest? Like, how do you be tolerant of this when they're like these white nationalists? There's no reason to be tolerant of white nationalism, tolerant of bigotry, tolerant of homophobia. There's no reason to be tolerant of those things. There's not positions where I think we should raise taxes or lower taxes, or I think we should finance this or not finance that. These are not those types of things. These are clear-cut ethical considerations. And as a society, you have to have some kind of commonality of what we define as to be morally egregious or impermissible. And my line in the sand are certain things like those ones I just described. There's no reason to be tolerant of a white nationalist. I'm sorry. Have I had them on as guests? But not because we promote white nationalists. It's because we want to show their position has flaws to it. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. You can show that you have flaws with those types of positions, and you're not tolerant of them. That's nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of these really strong left-leaning people are like so much free speech absolutism that they find that nothing is intolerant. Nothing should ever be intolerant, and I disagree with that. I think that to have a cohesive society, we have to be intolerant of certain things, or else we have a non-tolerant society. Anyways, I have to like go for 5 minutes. Can you take over, Josh?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
I think these. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Since Steve's going to be gone, you might be able to answer this for him. Would you say that not having a white nationalist on and ignoring them would be a form of tolerance?
It depends on if you're talking about like complicity. So if you're complicit, then you're tolerating it, right? So if you have a damn it, he mutes his outside microphone but doesn't mute his inside microphone, so I get to hear him rustling around. If you have, let's say you have a white nationalist on and they're there to not talk about white nationalism, and you've made your position on white nationalism clear, and you guys are having a completely separate conversation, totally unrelated to that, but you've been clear that, hey, listen, I'm not pro this thing, I'm not da 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 da, we're going to have this conversation about something else. I think there's room when it comes to platforming to be able to do something like that. However, if they redirect and move the conversation into white nationalism, if you don't shut that shit down, you have mishandled the conversation. You've mishandled your platform.
Or counter it.
Right. Or counter it. Yeah. Shut it down by either countering it or stopping the conversation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But whatever you're prepared to do. But you need to be prepared to do those kinds of things. Right.
I was going to add to the paradox of tolerance. Contained within it, a lot of people who are more right-leaning and libertarian, rather than left libertarian, they will often, cite free speech arguments to counter it. But contained within the paradox of tolerance is the idea that there is a threshold. It's not that they want to set it low or high. It's that if you allow tolerance without limit, there's absolutely no limit. That the people who are willing to cross those boundaries will cross them, and you can't stop them.
Yes, because you have to allow them to. So there's the way I kind of tend to lean is that I am very tolerant in that people are going to be people. Humans are going to be humans, and all humans ought to be treated at a level of you're a human. I acknowledge that you are a human, and I will treat you as if you are a human. Period. That's it. But that doesn't mean I have to agree with, accept, or listen to your garbage, right? Because I acknowledge you're a human, and all humans have some garbage. We've all been there. We've all had shitty takes about something at some point in time. And the fact that people are intolerant to that is sometimes the wake-up call you need to be like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. That people ought not be tolerating Matt Dillahunty's behavior. People ought not be tolerating Jimmy Snow's behavior. People ought not be tolerating Kyle's behavior. And the result of those behaviors, the consequences, are something that you societally decide on as a whole, right? And that the judge, and if there's a jury in whatever case, is going to be the ones that divvy out and make that decision. Right. So it turns into one of those situations where, hey, listen, if you have a problem with the consequences of Kyle's actions, you need to take it up with the court. If you have a problem with people saying, hey, listen, but Jimmy's a human and I want to forgive him. Well, okay, but not everybody has to do that. Right.
And there's a difference between forgiving somebody and letting them off without consequence.
Correct. And sometimes those consequences aren't even doled out by you. Sometimes those consequences are doled out by external forces.
Like sometimes a part of the forgiving process is including consequences. Sometimes it has to include consequences.
Oh, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. Sometimes those consequences are legal. Sometimes those consequences will ruin somebody's life. And sometimes those consequences are just trying to rectify whatever damage that you've done. And so if you have to, let's say you spent 3 years slandering Steve. Well, now you got to spend 3 years being positive towards Steve and spreading a good reputation. Uh-oh. Okay. Speaking of consequences.
It's a boy.
Hey, Steve, you're muted. On the outside. Yeah, start again.
Well, sorry about that, people. How about that? Yeah, so I have a notification for people. People have been wondering what has been going on with my long-term thing. It has been made public now that Katie Joy Paulson has been served in a $50,000 plus punitive damages lawsuit for defamations against me. She has threatened a countersuit, which is fine. There's no countersuit that she can possibly have. I have evidence for everything, that everything was non-malicious, that everything I've said, and based upon other people's comments. So yes, I have I've hired 2 attorneys at a very reputable law firm, and we have launched a complaint against her for defamation per se, for the numerous allegations she had against me, for accusing me of fraud, for sexual harassment, filing under the VAWA, abusing a child, everything that I've said for the longest time. She is being sued. We are going to try to go for a trial jury so we can get punitive damages. But she has put out that she has been served. I'm not releasing the complaint yet. Only a few people have actually seen it. But yes, I am suing Katie Joy Paulson, as I said I was going to, and I keep my promises.
I have every intention of doing a Goblin Reads / Dumbfect Friday, whichever one applies better to the. I'm just going to do a marathon, and I'm going to read through all of it. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I mean,
spicy.
I have overwhelming evidence of defamation per se. They took this case immediately. And so, like I said, I'll talk more about it at additional time. It's not the place for this right now. But yes, I will confirm that I am, in fact, have a complaint that has been served on Katie Joy Paulson for defamation.
I can't wait to read it. Is the complaint public?
No, not yet. The way it works in Montana or Minnesota is you do the complaint, you have it served, she can respond to it or not. And then if she wants to go to trial, we're more than prepared for that.
Okay. Well, her Twitter response is, may I?
Yeah.
So what she said is, "Oh my God, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Steve McRae is suing me for defamation. Let's do this. My countersuit with damages is ready to go." That sounds like Kyle.
Well, yeah.
You remember when Kyle?
Yeah, damages. She has 176,000 subs and claims to make $30,000 a month. What damages? I can show financial damages. There's been nothing I mean, yeah, this is all. I mean, but this goes into the narrative that she puts out to her, people. She has had no damages from me because I've said nothing malicious, and she is a public figure. Everything I've said is freedom of speech. I've never had anything malicious against her. Everything I put out has reasons for it. She has put out things against me which were malicious, like saying the TRO was filed under a VAWA, which was not. The judge did not do that. I have that confirmation from my attorney, and my lawyer said that's not possible. That is defamation per se. That is, and I can prove damages.
The next thing is discovery is going to be amazing. This means we can subpoena all social media accounts. We can truly find out what was done behind the scenes to damage my reputation. I think we will countersue for about $500K in damages, maybe more.
That's
I can't wait to see the nothing.
Let me see those damages. And by the way, I will turn over all my Twitter, all my Facebook, and I have other messages that I have not released yet.
You give that shit over for free.
I think I have everything that I've ever written to anybody. My lawyers can get, absolutely, and they also get what she wrote too.
Helios for 5 says, "Intolerance is like an infection. Ignoring it is always a bad idea, but poking and prodding it is also a bad idea. You have to address it with proper meds." Yeah.
So I mean, this is this is the level of.
Should we tolerate Kate? Should Steve just tolerate Katie Joy, or is that the line?
Right. Should I tolerate the amount of misinformation and defamation she's put out to me? No. This is why my lawyer was setting me up for a defamation suit from day one. This is why I did the NDA. This is why I did all that, was to sue her for this. Now, she has no countersuit whatsoever. She wants to pretend that it is fine. Look, I have been in touch with Todd Chrisley. We have been communicating on this. I will admit this.
You said that before.
I've said this before. She thinks she's going to outspend, Todd Chrisley and his defamation lawsuit. When he files it, that's not going to happen. And he's looking. Look, his lawsuit's a lot bigger than mine. I can tell you that right here now. So
the Living Dinosaur said it's about fucking time that people start to learn that spreading lies and defaming people doesn't suddenly come acceptable or legal just because you do it on the interwebs.
Thank you. And that's been what I'm saying for a while. Look, the things she has said have been outright defamational Bar none. You can't. I mean, when you lie to malign somebody and their reputation by saying things like I've committed fraud and then apologize for it, you've automatically have shown that you have committed an injustice there. But she has also, again, made many other things later on. Say that I've said death threats, that I've threatened. She said I threatened her to make an apology in an email. That never happened. I have confirmation that she has made that video voluntarily. She tried deleting stuff that I have confirmed is from her account. I mean, they can still get that data from her account. So
all this reminds me of is, hey, are the ACA people and the people on the line still friends with KJ and
I don't think they
Kyle?
really were. She wasn't really part of the community.
Yeah,
but it's funny that she thinks it's funny, right?
On the non sequitur show, who were the people that were doing shit with her on the non sequitur show and friendly with her on Twitter?
Right. So I mean, I'll put the, like I said, I'm putting the announcement out there now. Right now, I've got the means right now to at least do the preliminary stuff. If it has to go to full trial, I know how much it's going to cost. I know how much I can get for it, and I'll probably have to, maybe eventually have the community help because people have said they want to help on this, and that's fine. Right now, it's all okay. So I don't need the support at the moment, except for emotional support. And support that people recognize that she has crossed the line by falsely accusing me of these things. And I'm not going to take it any longer. I am fighting back. I'm doing it legally because I've never done anything she's ever accused me of. It's all been outrageous lies. People have been aware of this because they've asked, where's the evidence? And there hasn't been any because there isn't any evidence to have. And it's malicious. It has been malicious against my character and has harmed me financially. And I can prove damages. And so for her to say that she wants to file a countersuit and prove damages, she makes $30,000 a month. I make a small percentage of that a year.
I'm sure a good portion of people are going to be watching the multiple channels that are going to end up talking about this, and we'll see how well that goes. And I mean, we saw how well it went for Kyle. We see how well these things have gone for many people.
I have not lost a case yet, and I don't intend to. And so she can do exactly what she's doing with Todd Chrisley and put this bravado out. But I have all the facts, I have all the evidence, and I actually have a case. And that's one of the reasons my lawyers took this instantly. As soon as I reached out to them and told them what was going on, I had a lawyer call me. So it is official now. I am suing Katie, and although I can't go into the specifics of what the complaint says in it right now. We'll get there. Though when she she can negotiate with my lawyer. I mean, that's fine. But if she doesn't, then it goes to full trial. They have punitive damages in Minnesota, and that's what we're looking forward to, is getting those punitive damages for maliciousness, for her saying the things she said against me. Everything I've said against her is freedom of speech. She's a public figure, and I also have evidence that it wasn't malicious. I have reasons to believe things I have said were true, and so there's no malicious. There's nothing there. So,
you want me to ensure that you win, and you want me to ensure that you win and try to get her in touch with Nate?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You say that like she isn't already.
I will tell you what. I'll tell you this. Once it's settled, and I do get a settlement out of it, because I expect either a settlement or a judgment from a jury. I'm probably not going to stop with just her. So there have been other people.
I was going to make a similar joke. The fact that she knows how your suit with Kyle went, do you think that she made a mistake with her tweet and meant to say, "Oh my God, this is the scariest thing"?
Well, it's a bravado. I mean, look. I mean, do people not realize that everything I said about the Kyle case has come to fruition, has been true?
It's the exact same thing Kyle did. Yeah. I was like, I'm ready to sue. I'm ready to go. I got my lawyer.
What is your defense to say that the judge put it under the VAWA when we know it was pro forma? Like that? Or that I abused her child, or that I sent death threats. There's no evidence for any of that because it never happened.
Oh, but she can start some Steve Hate Boner scamathons to get some money.
That's perfectly fine. Look, I'm not doing that for publicity. I'm sure Todd Chrisley will mention it at some point. I told him not to, obviously, until the complaint's filed. But I mean, it'll get promoted, and if I get promotion out of it, that's fine. But that doesn't negate the legal ramifications for her actions for defaming me over a period of how long? Enough's enough. I want retribution as far as the legalities of having my name cleared and her apologize, and not just apologize, but admit that she lied, and then financial restitution. I'm not asking for a hell of a lot. I'm asking simply for financial restitution of a modest amount compared to what she's going to spend on trial, and then admit that she lied about these things. I don't think that's unfair. Do you?
I don't think you've been unfair to anybody, and I would the amount of spin and escalation that goes on from people with the ACA, from like atheist community, from the people that they've decided to associate themselves with, who take it and go even a step further with their blessing, it appears. Well, they say you're unfair. They say you block. They say you do this. They say you do that. And now we're at the point where that's gone to the point of defamation, and now there are consequences.
Correct. And somebody had brought
because you can't be tolerant of everything. That would be unreasonable. And that's how you loop all of it together.
Somebody had said, who started talking about the NDA expired after? Yeah, but I also said 6 months prior, when I could, I will do a blog on it and tell everybody kind of what happened. That's what I did. But you know, that doesn't negate the fact that she's still going on telling people misinformation, that she's still running these defamatory things, saying that. People bringing that
up are missing the point. Yeah, so the point is that Steve didn't start talking any new shit on KJ. He just explained to everybody what happened, which he promised everybody he would do.
Correct. I keep my promises.
So and you're back to that double-edged, like the double side. Which one do you take? Do you break your promise and not bring it up when people and KJ are still talking about Steve throughout the NDA? Because that was still happening.
Correct.
You can see it in live chats where she's paying money to people to talk shit about Steve.
And I didn't say anything about it.
Who broke it first? The answer is still KJ.
I could have talked about her any time. I mean, it was right there. I could do commentary. I decided not to because I knew I'd be suing her for defamation at some point. And it just kind of fell into my lap that she had been lying more about certain things that I can actually add to the suit. So it worked out well for me. But you know, I just hope that I have the community support. A lot of people have wanted to see this. I kept my word. I told people that I was working on this. I told people that there was another person suing her. Hashtag me. And I have full expectation that I'll come out ahead on it. 100%. So with that,
I thought of a good allegory or a simile about this situation. People like, you know how people like catch a fish and then they try to like pretend like it's a bigger one, or every time they explain the fish that they caught, it gets bigger, like in every story they tell, and then suddenly it's like a huge shark. It's like that, but like the opposite. It's like people are hunting you, and when they talk about you, you're Moby Dick.
Yeah.
But really,
you're like Sasquatch. He's actually just blurry.
By the way,
really, you're a guppy.
I should have another stream this later because she's trying to put out things that are defamation. Look, I have actual reasons. I have the DMs for all my things that I've had with people to show that I was not defaming anybody at any time, and I was under the impression that people were telling me the truth, and I still believe that. I mean, I don't think anybody's lied to me on certain things.
KJ's entire shtick is don't talk about me talking about you.
Yeah, I've not defamed her. She's talking about screenshots I guess she's going off on. Look, that's not defamation because it requires malice. I have the original DMs from the person who sent me those shots. They have never been released, so she doesn't even know what's in them. I've covered all my bases on this because I'm always going to put out the truth, and I've talked to the person who sent me those things, and they're fine with me using any kind of lawsuit. So yeah, this is all smoke and mirrors. There's been no defamation.
Mr. President for 10 said, "I wonder if the super lawyer female will cover this case or continue to lick Nate's butt." Okay, that was mean. But after she buddied with him, I lost all faith in her very quickly. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you associate with some people.
Defamation requires actual damages that you can show. She's making $30,000 a year. Where's her damages? And also requires malice. There's no malice in anything I've said. I based it upon due diligence, verifying certain things. Plus, I wasn't the one that released things initially. So this is all smoke and mirrors for her, and it's fine. But it's going to lend into the fact that it shows that this is her type of character. That has been lying to people.
There's a pattern of behavior, a long pattern of behavior with KJ. But I'm sure we'll do a stream specifically about this and talking about this for those who are interested. But for now, I'm gonna let her do whatever. It's between the lawyers now. People can come to me in private, and I'll be happy to have isn't that what somebody
with them.
said? Oh, there shouldn't be any talk about this publicly. It should just be between the lawyers.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'll let the community know if and when I do need some support from them. and we'll go from there. But I'm very confident in this, 100%. I was with Kyle. I knew that I was in the right. I know I'm in the right here, and I think a lot of people have recognized that. And please reach out to me privately, and I'll be happy to have a conversation with you what I can. But I'm not releasing the actual complaint yet. If she wants to, that's up to her. If she has a copy, and then if she does, then I can talk about it. But it's very well written. I'll give it that.
I cannot wait to observe and read through this case. I'm sure it will be just as entertaining as the non sequitur one has been, although the non sequitur one has been exhausting. This is one of those things that we're all going to laugh about later.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the fact she's bringing up screenshots that I have exculpatory evidence to show that there was no malicious intent on there just destroys. My lawyer even explained very clearly it requires maliciousness or malice for a public figure. I've never had any malice. I did my due diligence. I relied on other people telling me, where they came from, the story. And so it's just smoke and mirrors.
Save the countersuit parts for Fridays.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. What is she gonna? How do you sue somebody that has no assets? I mean, what does she expect to gain? It's just nonsensical. I can sue her because she has assets and she has maligned me and cost me money that I can actually prove damages from one year to the next and show exactly when she's made these arguments and show the losses. So, I mean, it's just unreal. But I mean, I know that I'm legally in the right, and I was in the non sequitur show, and I am here. But it's for another show. Anyways, we're going to wrap this up. We're over 2 hours, well over 2 hours. So
yeah,
I want to thank especially the callers and Autumn especially. That was one of the better calls we've had, and I appreciate it. So anything you want to say before we get out of here?
I'll be live on Wednesday talking about some. Hold on, what's it called? It was one I was supposed to do before I actually left on vacation. Mm-hmm. And it was. Let me just double check what it's called because it's out of my brain right now. That will be on Wednesday at my usual time, 4 p.m. So go join me over there. And it's organizational bullshit, the perception scale.
Oh, there you go.
So how much is somebody working for a place? It kind of falls into the ACA. How much bullshit are you willing to put up before you quit from your workplace?
I think everybody's lived through that. All right, guys, thanks for watching this.
And I'll be covering this when it goes public.
Okay. Well, I would expect no less. And like I said, anybody who wants to cover it, all I ask is be objective and come to me if they want the facts. Because here's my motto. Let me say it real quick. If you're an honest agent asking honest questions, I'll give you honest answers. That's it. There is a Dumb Feck Friday on Friday, and there's also that time of the month coming this Saturday, and we're going to be talking about mask mandates and vaccine stuff. Sounds good to me. All right, guys, thanks for watching this, and we'll see you later. Bye. Thanks for calling.